This clip of Donald Trump as he gave this speech yesterday, and it is um, low energy for sure. But more importantly than that, um, he is Donald Trump is a fascist, and I can't overstate that enough. And for those of you who probably are, maybe there's one or two people in the audience who's not really sure what fascism is. I'm going to define it in terms of Donald Trump, not so much in the technical definition of fascism, because that's a game that a lot of people play. But I think it's more of like totalitarianism, white supremacy, with authoritarianist leanings and desires, mixed with megalomania and sociopathy. And what I mean by that is totalitarian, meaning holistic, everything is one. White supremacy is that if it's outside of white supremacist ideologies and way of thinking and viewing the world, Donald Trump sees it as an enemy. And so he's looking for a singular, unified, totalitarian worldview to be impressed upon and forced upon the entire nation. And that worldview is white supremacy. We see him coddling Nazis. We see him coddling fascists. We see him coddling white militias. He defends them and literally sends federal agents to kill us. Authoritarian leanings. He's fighting against American democracy in order to have complete authority over this country above and beyond the Constitution. Obviously, the sociopathy, he has no empathy whatsoever for anything. And the megalomania, he is completely and utterly consumed with his own person, his own personality, how we perceive him, how he's perceived. We are dealing with a very malevolent, evil person. And yesterday, when you watch this clip, I just want you to see how he is pitting, how he is dividing the country along a very specific line, that he doesn't want anything taught outside of this specific line. And anything that is taught that challenges that specific line of thinking and reasoning and argumentation from American white supremacy, anything that challenges that, he wants destroyed. And he's calling it, his new phrase is critical race theory. And he wants to get rid of critical race theory. And he wants to replace it with the 1776 Commission. Take a listen into this clip.
Students in our universities are inundated with critical race theory. This is a Marxist doctrine, holding that America is a wicked and racist nation, that even young children are complicit in oppression, and that our entire society must be radically transformed. Critical race theory is being forced into our children's schools. It's being imposed into workplace trainings, and it's being deployed to rip apart friends, neighbors, and families. A perfect example of critical race theory was recently published by the Smithsonian Institution. This document alleged that concepts such as hard work, rational thinking, and the nuclear family and belief in God were not values that unite all Americans, but were instead aspects of whiteness. This is offensive and outrageous to Americans of every ethnicity, and it's especially harmful to children of minority backgrounds who should be uplifted, not disparaged. Teaching this horrible doctrine to our children is a form of child abuse in the truest sense of those words.
So, we are in the era of doublespeak, right? We're in the era of just outright lies. They would saying that this is teaching children about America's problematic past and how its problematic past contributes to a lot of the problems that we see today, and how America can become a more perfect union if we address those issues is child abuse to Donald Trump and Stephen Miller, the person who probably wrote this. I'm going to let a little bit more of this play because I want you to hear several things. I want you to hear his reference to Dr. King in this clip. That's coming up in a moment. But I also want you to hear how widely supported Donald Trump, this type of thinking, this type of white nationalist indoctrination and propaganda and doublespeak, how people just accept it and receive it joyously. He's not by himself. He's got a lot of people who back him up on this shit.
For many years now, the radicals have mistaken Americans' silence for weakness, but they're wrong. There is no more powerful force than a parent's love for their children, and patriotic moms and dads are going to demand that their children are no longer fed hateful lies about this country. American parents are not going to accept indoctrination in our schools, cancel culture in our work, or the repression of traditional faith, culture, and values in the public square. Not anymore.
I want you to hear how long these people clap. I'm fading it out because it's a little loud and I don't want to have to yell over it, but they clapped and they stood and they applauded and they cheered and they celebrated Donald Trump talking about getting rid of anything that challenges traditional religion and this basic conservative worldview. And of course they'll be celebrating. Of course they'll be excited about that. Of course they would love that because it's not enough for them to have religious liberty. It's not enough for them to have freedom to do what they want to do. This is the totalitarian part of this. They want the ability to stop you from living your life the way you see best. And so it is all one and the same, right? Donald Trump's desire to get rid of quote unquote critical race theory is intricately intertwined with conservative Christian evangelicals who want the ability to control your belief system and want America to be this theocracy where only traditional. Who gives them the right to define traditional? Who gives them the right to define what's traditional for you? The Constitution certainly does not give them the authority to define what is traditional for you. And so Donald Trump seamlessly intertwines, or Stephen Miller, the white supremacist who wrote this for him, seamlessly intertwines religious bigotry with racial bigotry because that's what's at the core of conservatism. And that's why they applauded as long as they did. Listen to this last part.
We embrace the vision of Martin Luther King where children are not judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. The left is attempting to destroy that beautiful vision and divide Americans by race in the service of political power. By viewing every issue through the lens of race, they want to impose a new segregation, and we must not allow that to happen. Critical race theory, the 1619 Project, and the crusade against American history is toxic propaganda, ideological poison that, if not removed, will dissolve the civic bonds that tie us together, will destroy our country. That is why I recently banned trainings in this prejudiced ideology from the federal government and banned it in the strongest manner possible.
The world of doublespeak. The sky is green and the grass is blue. Day is night and night is day. He's saying that this desire that we radicals have to understand the root of the problems that we have in this country today and trace that all the way back to slavery, that is an affront to Dr. King's legacy, according to Donald Trump, who probably hated Dr. King when he was alive. Okay, let's just be sure. If we go back and find a young teenage Donald Trump, a young man Donald Trump, he probably was calling Dr. King the N-word. Okay? But now he has the unmitigated gall to do what conservatives love to do, which is to co-opt and to whitewash Dr. King into some kumbaya nonsense when Dr. King directly challenged the system, which is why conservatism killed him. Let's be sure. Dr. King would be old enough to still speak for himself today if they hadn't killed him. But they got the nerve to invoke his name. And to do so by saying that Dr. King was appealing to some type of whitewashed, race-neutral ideology, and that by us discussing the issues of race, we are betraying this race-neutral ideology that Dr. King never had. Dr. King had a vision of us cutting through the core problems of this country, which he called out. He called out the racism. He called out white supremacy. And most of all, he called out capitalism. He called out American imperialism. And that's why they killed him. But ultimately, this is Donald Trump's really play for the culture wars. He's really just trying to give the people in America who are completely uncomfortable with looking in the mirror and accepting the fact. And this is the thing. It's like you have to look into the mirror of America. I don't care what Jim Bob and Sue Ann do in terms of their personal racism, so long as it doesn't come to me or someone else. What we care about is how that becomes systematic across the country and how America has had policies that have been detrimental to people of color and marginalized communities since the very foundations of this country and before the founding of this country. And so the 1619 Project, which was, I believe, done by the New York Times, it took a look at an in-depth look at that. And Donald Trump said, no, we don't want that. What we want to do is only look at America from 1776 and only look at America through the lens of American greatness. Because if you ever consider the fact that America isn't perfect, then you ask the question of how do we make it a more perfect union? And if you ask that question, then it begins to reveal the rancid underbelly of America, which points towards white supremacy, capitalism, imperialism. And they can't do that because that fundamentally undermines their power structure, which I have said repeatedly on this show. I've said it so many times that I hope people already know what I'm getting ready to reference. Bill O'Reilly telling John McCain back in 2007 that America power structure is run by white Christian men.